Uncovering the Fall of the Berlin Wall, a Historical Perspective. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 wasn't just the collapse of a physical barrier, it was the shattering of decades-long oppression and division. This story is about more than bricks and mortar, it's about resilience, unity, and the indomitable human spirit. Today, we'll dive into this historic event, from its Cold War origins to its life-altering conclusion, breaking down every key moment in the process. Let's journey back in time to understand how a divided Germany and a world locked in a geopolitical stalemate brought us to that unforgettable November night, and what it still teaches us about hope and freedom. After World War II, Germany was a defeated nation. The Allies, comprising the Soviet Union, the United States, the United Kingdom, and France, divided the country into zones of occupation. But this wasn't a peaceful resolution. As the Cold War deepened, the rift between East and West Germany grew larger. The Federal Republic of Germany, or West Germany, aligned itself with the democratic and capitalist West, while the German Democratic Republic, GDR, or East Germany, became a Soviet-controlled communist state. Berlin, the capital, was similarly split, creating a stark ideological and political divide. Between the late 1940s and 1960, almost 3.5 million East Germans, over 15% of the GDR's population, fled to the West in search of freedom and opportunity. This mass exodus was a major embarrassment for East Germany and the Soviet Union, prompting drastic action. On August 13, 1961, the solution to this problem materialized. Trucks rolled in, soldiers lined the streets, and barbed wire went up overnight. What started as a crude fence quickly transformed into the Berlin Wall, a 12-foot-high, heavily guarded concrete barricade stretching for 96 miles. The wall wasn't just physical, it was emotional, psychological, and symbolic. It turned neighbors into enemies, cut families in half, and became a grim reminder of the Cold War's stakes. Watchtowers and heavily armed guards ensured that escaping the GDR wouldn't be easy or survivable in many cases. Living in East Germany was like living in a tightly controlled prison. The GDR regime, under Erich Honecker, suppressed dissent and imposed strict surveillance. Citizens were monitored by the notorious Stasi, one of the most effective and oppressive secret police forces in history. Basic freedoms were non-existent, propaganda dominated daily life. In contrast, West Germany enjoyed a thriving economy, political freedoms, and a booming cultural scene. The bright lights of West Berlin stood as a beacon of what life could be for those trapped in the East. This stark difference led to some of the most daring and heart-stopping escape attempts in history. People tunneled beneath the wall, hid in modified cars, or even flew over it in makeshift aircraft. For many, risking death was preferable to living without freedom. By the 1980s, cracks were starting to show. Not in the wall itself, but in the systems it symbolized. The Soviet Union, under Mikhail Gorbachev, introduced reforms like glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring, in an attempt to modernize and stabilize its crumbling economy. These policies weakened communist regimes across Eastern Europe, including the GDR. Meanwhile, tensions eased between global superpowers. US President Ronald Reagan took a strong yet optimistic stance. In 1987, during a landmark speech at the Brandenburg Gate in West Berlin, Reagan challenged Gorbachev directly, proclaiming, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Around the same time, grassroots movements across Eastern Europe were gaining momentum. The Polish Solidarity movement showed the power of organized protests in uniting people against oppressive regimes, and these ideas began spreading to East Germans. As East Germany faced mounting pressures from within and beyond its borders, it became clear that authoritarian control was faltering. Throughout 1989, protests in cities like Leipzig grew in size and determination. These demonstrations, often referred to as the Monday protests, were peaceful but powerful, demanding democratic reform and opening the borders. The East German government underestimated the strength of the people's resolve. They responded with violence at first, but soon found that resistance was futile. The power of unity and nonviolent protest overwhelmed them. At the same time, other Eastern Bloc countries, including Hungary and Czechoslovakia, were opening their borders, creating pathways for East Germans to flee. The inevitability of change grew closer with each passing day. Everything came to a head on November 9, 1989. At a press conference that day, an East German official, Günter Schabowski, made an announcement that changed the course of history. Responding to questions about new travel policies, he mistakenly stated that East Germans could immediately cross into the West without restrictions. What followed was pure chaos. Thousands of East Berliners swarmed border checkpoints, overwhelming the guards. Unprepared and without clear orders, the border guards had little choice but to open the gates. That night, Berliners from both sides of the wall came together in celebration. East and West Berliners climbed the wall, cheering, crying, and chipping away at its once daunting surface with hammers and chisels. The once unthinkable became reality. The wall fell, and with it, decades of oppressions. The fall of the Berlin Wall triggered a domino effect. Within a year, Germany was reunited, marking the first time in over 40 years that the country stood as one. This event symbolized the broader collapse of communist regimes across Eastern Europe and even foreshadowed the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. But the wall's significance isn't just political. It's a symbol, a reminder of the human yearning for freedom and the power of collective action. It teaches us that no wall, no matter how fortified or imposing, can withstand the will of people united in purpose. To truly understand the magnitude of this moment, we must hear from those who lived it. Survivors share vivid memories of separation, loss, and hope fulfilled. Historians remind us of the fragile balance that brought the Cold War to an end without escalating into global conflict. Their stories of fear, resilience, and celebration bring history to life. It's one thing to study the past in facts and figures. It's another to feel it through the voices of those who lived it. In the decades since, the Berlin Wall's story has remained as timely as ever. It serves as a warning against division and a testament to the strength of human perseverance. Like the individuals who chipped away at the wall brick by brick, change often happens collectively through individual actions that gather momentum. Even today, the traces of the Berlin Wall stand as a quiet monument to this fight for freedom. They're a stark reminder of the cost of division and the triumph of unity. The fall of the Berlin Wall was more than just a pivotal moment in history. It was a triumph of hope over fear, of people over oppression. It reminds us that history is shaped not solely by leaders and policies, but by the courage and determination of ordinary citizens. As we look back on this extraordinary event, we're reminded of an essential truth. No barrier, no matter how imposing, can hold back the collective will for freedom. May the lessons of Berlin inspire us to build bridges, not walls, in a divided world. And that's the story of how the Berlin Wall came tumbling down, a pivotal moment in history that continues to shape our world today. So, what do you think? Did you know that the Berlin Wall was more than just a physical barrier? Share your thoughts in the comments below.